to turn off, silence any devices that might disturb us. We are here until 5 o'clock or soon thereafter, and if I've got this right, we will complete the evidence of Ms Tweedy hopefully this morning, and then embark on the evidence of Mr Van Grieken. Are there any procedural matters or anything anyone wants to raise before we carry on? Mr Steele? Are you working, Mr Steele?
Thank you, sir. One timetabling matter, sir. I've had various discussions with others, and I wonder whether it might be efficient for the inquiry if it was agreed that Mr Mappin, who's my planning witness, would be on Monday. A discussion that is realistic. If that were, and the Council do not start before Tuesday, that would have several advantages. It would give certainty, obviously, to Mr Mappin, but it would also give certainty to other planning witnesses from other side that they would know when they have to return to hear his evidence. It may also allow my friends to know that they can either prepare or refine, as the case may be, their cross-examination for Mr Mappin over the weekend for Monday. And from everything I've been told, that seems entirely realistic. I don't see much prospect of him being on much before Monday in any event. And if that were done, as I say, it would give certainty to everybody.
Thank you. Any views on that? Any issues with that, Mr Thompson?
That seems to me to be highly appropriate, sir.
Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other points? Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, Mr Mackay, you were the last cross-examined. Had you completed, or still further cross-examination?
No, sir. I've still got quite a bit to do, I'm afraid.
Okay. Roughly how long, do you think?
I'm aiming to finish before lunchtime.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Ms Tweedy. This next chapter of the cross-examination will relate to the impact on the setting of the Royal High School, which is Asset Group 28. In relation to Scheme 1, if we can start with that, please, can you have before you CD 27? Now, you confirmed yesterday that in relation to Scheme 2, Chapter 10 of the Environmental Statement includes additional discussion of impact on viewpoints and so forth, whereas for Scheme 1, the main thrust of your reasoning is included within the table that we have in front of us. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, there is a note added immediately under the asset name and designation in the first table. It says, NB, the assessment considers the significance of the effects upon the former Royal High School in terms of the EIA regulations, detailed consideration of the impacts of the proposed east and wings of the development upon the setting of the listed building and its special interest presented in section 8.4 of Appendix J1. Now, to assist the reporters, am I right in thinking that should simply be Appendix J, which is in volume 13 of the ES, in other words, Part 2 of Andrew Wright's Heritage Statement?
Sorry, I don't have a contents page here, so I just need to check that that's correct. But assuming that is Mr Wright's Part 2, then yes, that's correct.
Can I take you to it then, just to be sure that what you're referring to here is what I understand you to be referring to? That's CD 26, please. And section 8.4 of that document begins on electronic page 79, hard copy page 64. And this is Appendix J of volume 13 to the ES. So is this the section that you're cross-referring to in your appendix? Begins on page 64 and it's section 8.4.
Yes, I believe so, but I think that's a summary of the case, so there may in fact be some further detail elsewhere in the document, just by the title summary.
Well, I'm just asking so I'm clear of what you're relying upon. There's a reference to 8.4, and there's a reference to Appendix J1. Having checked what Appendix J1 is, it doesn't seem to match up. However, there does seem to match up with this section in the heritage statement prepared by Andrew Wright. So I just want to be clear, this is the section that you're relying upon.
Yes, that seems to be the correct section.
And do we see at 8.4.3, Mr. Wright says the levels of mitigation adopted in the design of the new bedroom wings and the glazed links are considered to have been very largely successful. Evidence of this confirmed in the photomontage views prepared for the EIA. In some of the views, the impact is considered to be minimal and potentially beneficial in enhancing the character and setting of the neoclassical former school building. In other views, the issues surrounding the quantum of development required for the project to be economically viable may not have been wholly resolved. The potential for the new bedroom wings to have an adverse impact on the setting and special character of the listed building remain. Now, as I understood it in his evidence last week, Mr. Wright drew attention to areas where he was of the view that because of the quantum of development, there was an adverse impact on the setting of the Royal High School, appreciating that his evidence was in relation to the totality of the impact on OUV, but he said the two were difficult to separate, and in that respect he accepted that there was a potential for adverse effects on the setting of the Royal High School. Is that also your understanding?
Yes, I would agree that there are some particular views where it might be understood as an adverse impact, but overall I consider it to be a beneficial impact.
Which leads me to my next question, because if we go back to CD 27, we don't see any discussion of those areas where there might be thought to be an adverse impact on views, do we?
That's true.
And just to be clear then, for the benefit of the reporters, which views do you have in mind when you say you do accept now that there are the potential, or there is the potential rather, for adverse effects on setting of the Royal High School? Can you summarise which views you're speaking of?
I would need to consult the range of viewpoints to be able to do that accurately. I believe some of the more detailed information in my Scheme 2 EIA contains that information, although obviously the precise impact is slightly different because it's a different scheme.
Well, I appreciate that, Ms Tweedy, but you've prepared an evidence to the public inquiry which includes substantive evidence on Scheme 1. Your inquiry report refers back to the content of the assessment in Chapter 10 and this table. You've accepted that this table refers to Andrew Wright's evidence in relation to the adverse effects on setting in relation to individual viewpoints, but you're not able to assist the inquiry with what those adverse impacts are in relation to your own evidence, are you?
I believe my full understanding of the impacts on the building are set out in my inquiry report.
So the section that begins, section 5, where you're dealing with the former Royal High School, is in essence the same points which you make in relation to Scheme 2, in relation to the same viewpoints. That's what you're relying upon, is that right?
Yes, broadly similar conclusions are reached.
So we'll come to those in a moment. Can I look, please, at CD 165? appreciate this is in relation to the second scheme, but I think the reasoning applies equally in relation to the first scheme. CD165 at page 1039. Which is electronic page 47, CD165, section 10.983. Do you have that?
I do.
And in the previous page, we see that this is the section dealing with the former Royal High School. There's a paragraph relating to the Propylaeum, which we'll come back to in due course. But 10.983, you say that the halfway through the paragraph, the Royal High School site tends to draw the eye due to its construction in a different, more coloured yellow stone than the other surrounding buildings, and due to the way that it appears from many of these locations to be tall in the Hamilton building. The gymnasium block is currently detrimental to the setting of the former Royal High School, detracting from the intended symmetrical appearance of the building. And then you go on to discuss particular viewpoints, and I think I'm right in saying that that discussion is reflected in your inquiry report, both in respect of Scheme 2 and also in relation to Scheme 1. It's essentially the same points that you're making. Is that fair?
Yes, they're broadly similar points. Obviously, the impact is different because they're different schemes.
But nowhere in your inquiry report do you expressly and explicitly identify where you consider there to be adverse impacts on the setting of the Royal High School in relation to either Scheme 1 or Scheme 2. Is that a fair comment?
I believe that's correct. I think you were asking me about Mr. Wright's comments about locations where there's an adverse impact, and as you pointed out yourself, we're not actually carrying out the same assessment. So whilst I agree with Mr. Wright's assessment, that doesn't necessarily mean my assessment would say the same things.
Ms. Tweedy, the question was put to you very carefully and in a very particular manner for a reason. Mr. Wright accepted in his evidence, which related to OUV, that the question of the impact on the setting of the Royal High School was very difficult to separate out. And the thrust of his evidence was that he accepted that there were areas and particular viewpoints where there would be an adverse impact on the setting of the high school. I put that to you, you agreed with it, and you agreed with his evidence in that respect. What I'm asking you now is where, either in the environmental statement or your inquiry report, you've brought to the attention of the reporters where those viewpoints are.
I haven't specifically referenced those viewpoints.
Thank you. Now, insofar as you relate to in the section which I've just read to you, make reference to the gymnasium block, am I correct in understanding that at this stage of your explanation, what you're doing is having regard to the current site setting, as it were? You're not at this stage looking at the impact on the setting, you're looking at defining and analysing what the setting is. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, can we check, please, what managing change on setting says in that respect? If it's CD 502. Do you have that?
I do.
Thank you. Now, I'm concerned at this stage of cross-examination simply with what is the setting and analysing what the setting is, rather than the next stage, stage 3, which goes on to assess the impact on that setting. You follow? Great. And in that respect, then, please look at page 6. Thank you. And under the heading, do we see what is setting? Do we see setting is the way the surroundings of a historic asset or place contribute to how it is understood, appreciated, and experienced?
Yes.
Monuments, buildings, gardens, and settlements were always placed and oriented deliberately, normally with reference to the surrounding topography, resources, landscape, and other structures. Over time, these relationships change, although aspects of earlier settings can be retained. So it's acknowledgement right at the beginning that the original historic setting may have changed over time. Is that right?
Yes, setting changes over time.
And when we look over the page to what factors contribute to setting, it says that these include the current landscape or townscape context. Is that right? And there are other issues, obviously, that are to be taken into account.
Yes, the current landscape is taken into account.
And if we look over then to next page, page 8, stage 2 is said to be defining and analysing the setting by establishing how the surroundings contribute to the ways in which the historic asset or place is understood, appreciated and experienced. So it's about understanding how those surroundings contribute to the way in which the place is understood. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you look over the page where stage 2 is explained in a bit more detail, the primary paragraph relating to this states, the setting of a historic asset comprises our present understanding and appreciation of its current surroundings and what, if anything, survives of its historic surroundings combined with subsequent historic changes, and then poses a series of questions that might be useful in defining what the setting is. But will you agree with me that the guidance is emphasising that in understanding and analysing what the setting is, it's the appreciation of the current surroundings which is important?
So I don't know about the witness, but I'm finding this very difficult to follow and hear, not because of the questions, which I'm sure are exemplary, but because of what's going on behind and outside. The Council's assistance has come to their aid yet again. I wonder if they'd like to call off their auxiliary troops, if that's possible, because this is very difficult.
Mr. Steele. Ms. Tweedy, how are you coping with this?
It is quite loud.
I noticed yesterday that it vibrates more that side of the columns than this side for some reason.
We're cantilevered out.
I think there are some supports.
Well, I haven't noticed them so far, sir. They're conducting the vibration very well, I can tell you.
Yeah.
But it is really quite difficult.
Are you finding it difficult to follow as well?
Yes, sir. I don't have the best of hearing, and I genuinely struggled for the past couple of minutes to actually hear the responses, and that's with the benefit of this. It's like a low hum, and it really is almost impossible to hear.
Okay, I think the best thing is if we stop and see if we can do something about it. Any volunteers?
Well, sir, as Council's employees, I think the Council should volunteer for this.
I don't think it's a direct link, to be honest, to be fair. You're volunteering me. That's very kind. Thank you. Okay. All right, well, let's just give it 10 minutes or so. Let's say we'll adjourn now until 10 o'clock, and we'll see if we can sort something out. If not, I think we'll have to carry on.
I'm very sorry to raise it, sir, but I'm not sure it's fair to the witness or to anyone else.
Yeah, I understand. Don't forget where we were. We'll come back in about 10 minutes. I hope you can all hear me above the noise outside. I see Mr. Mackay isn't here, but we'll carry on anyway. We've had a discussion with contractors. We've spoken to the management here, and we have come to the decision that we will adjourn this inquiry until tomorrow morning at 9:30. We are reassured that the noise and disturbance will be finished before then, and there'll be no disturbance of any significance after that. Anything anyone wants to say before we close for today?
Sir, I have got nothing to say because I think that was an inevitable conclusion, but it may be that Mr. Mackay has got a proposal about tomorrow. I merely raised it because he was out of the room when you asked for any comment.
Mr. Mackay, we've just announced that we're going to adjourn until tomorrow morning at 9:30, and I've just invited any comment. And Mr. Steele noted you were out of the room. Well, I noted you were out of the room. He suggested you might have some other suggestion.
Yes, apologies. Yes, it's really to take account of two issues. First of all, obviously the works that are ongoing and will be presumably still ongoing tomorrow.
Yes, but we're told and we're reassured that they'll be quiet from here on. This is the noisy day.
Well, the second issue being a lack of space around this side of the room. We did wonder whether, to take account of both of those issues, it might be sensible to effectively rotate how we're set up at the moment to the upper part of the room. There are two pillars you can see, sir, and the idea would be that if you were to position yourselves with your backs to the windows between those two pillars, then everything else could simply rotate to follow that. Now, it depends, I suppose, in your own view as to how comfortable we are at the moment and the likelihood of it being, if not silent, then at least quieter tomorrow. But it certainly is a suggestion that in order to make best use of today, if there are to be works ongoing, then it might be a sensible solution to make use of that time by, as I say, rotating the current setup. And my instructing agent reminds me, at the moment, you're sitting immediately in front of a fire exit.
We were aware of that, but we thought we'd probably get through the doors quite quickly.
I'm sure you would, sir.
But no,
But
seriously,
what about us,
yes,
sir?
that is another factor, yes. Okay, any other views on turning the room?
So that was raised with me earlier as a possibility, but before making comment on it, I'd like to know exactly what is intended. I wouldn't like to find myself, if I understand the position correctly, behind that pillar. And I also did raise with my friends what would happen to the seating for members of the public if, as I understand it, the proposal is that you sit between the two pillars which are at the far end of the room. I'm not entirely clear how this would work.
Okay, right. Well, I think the simplest thing now is that we'll close the...
So can I...
Mr. Mackin.
Yes, I have noticed in the latter part of the... in the latter part of the afternoon that there is a lot of sun through this corner, and it doesn't quite impinge on me at the moment. But all I ask, if you do consider it, that you think about that factor as part of your discussions amongst yourselves before you move us, because it could well be that in that position, whilst, of course, the gamesmanship in me would love Mr. Steele to be staring in the sun for 4 hours in the afternoon, I think it wouldn't be fair. So,
Make no difference.
and so if you could think about that, I'd be obliged.
Well, that's very kind, thank you. We'll adjourn now, and these matters can be discussed, and we can pace around and imagine tables in different positions. We'll do that afterwards. So that's it for now until 9:30 on